Looks like rain. Better make a hat. One of the things people struggle with a lot in historical costuming is headgear, and that's especially true for the Viking Age, because for the Viking Age we actually have a very limited amount of evidence for what people were wearing on their heads. When you consider that we've got around 125 helmets from the Viking Age and sort of immediately before and after it from all over Europe, we've got hundreds of swords, spearheads, arrowheads, thousands of rings and pieces of jewellery. We've only got about half a dozen hats that we can reliably say are Northern European and from around the Viking Age. That's pretty crazy to think about. So, where do you start when you want to make a hat? Well, look for a style that seems to be fairly common, and a fairly common style of hat that we see in Europe all the way from the Roman Empire through the Viking Age is the pillbox cap, so called because it looks a bit like a pillbox. This is kind of the origin of things like the bellhop or the bellboy cap that you see on bellboys in hotels, and it's a really simple piece of headgear. My yarn helmet is modelling one very attractively. And the one that we are going to be making is the Lens cap. It's from Lens in the north of the Netherlands. It's in Groningen, the province, and I apologise to History with Hilbert if I have mispronounced any of that. I tried really hard. And it's one of the few almost intact caps we have from the Viking Age, or around the Viking Age. And the Netherlands has actually given us a bit of a wealth of these things, because we have a couple of other hats. There's one from Raskert, which is also in, I think, the north of the Netherlands. There's also one from Ailsum, and we have some more as well. And they come in different shapes. This is a very simple pillbox cap. The Raskert hat actually has a kind of a peak. It's either a peak or it's a neck protector. It's difficult to know if it's meant to be a forward-facing, like a jockey cap, baseball cap, or if it's a cool rapper, backwards-facing baseball cap. We're not really sure yet. The one from Ailsum has, I think I'm pronouncing it Ailsum. Is it Ailsum or Alsum? I was pronouncing that completely wrong. It's just pronounced Alsum, so I apologise to all of my Fries and Dutch subscribers and viewers. So the Alsum hat has a kind of, it's this. It looks like this. It's got fun, like, flappy doodles. So if you want a hat with flappy doodles, make the Alsum hat. But we're going to be making a Lens cap, and the Lens cap is a super simple design. It's literally just a tube. It's just a tube. It's literally just a tube with a circle on the top. So if we crush the top of the hat, you can see it's just a straight line, top to bottom, with an oval, a circle on the top, and then this fun decorative stitch. The hat itself is fragmentary, but we've got most of it left. We've got 11 centimetres of top to bottom, which I'm going to call the brim, if you like, or the side wall. The height of the hat, we've got 11 centimetres from the top, which is complete, down to a bottom seam. And the bottom seam actually runs across the bottom. You can see mine is a little bit higher up than it should be here. That's because I made a mistake in the measurements and I had to tack that up for the video. But there should be a stitch just running along the bottom here. And just a nice sort of running stitch. So we know that it is mostly, at least, 11 centimetres from bottom to top. Then the measurements are going to change, because the original was made for somebody with a fairly small head. I'm not somebody with a fairly small head. I'm a big head. I'm a big-headed Welshman. My head is 60 centimetres in diameter. So I needed to change this. But it's still a very simple construction method. So, first thing you're going to need to do is choose your material. Now, the original is unlined in wool, as far as we can tell, and I've used this lovely blue and white herringbone wool that I actually bought for some completely different projects, but it's really nice. It's quite thin, it's got a lovely drape to it. It's really nice and crisp. It's a little bit scratchy, but hopefully that will wear off over time. It's fairly thin, so this isn't the warmest hat in the world. It's a little thinner than the original, which was slightly felted from use and possible washing and from being in the ground for 1,000 years. And it's lovely. It's just a lovely blue and white herringbone wool. So that's what mine is made of. So what you need to do first of all is measure your hat. So measure 11 centimetres across, and then take the measurement around your head, and that's going to be the length from seam to seam of this wall here. So mine is 61 centimetres because I have a 60 centimetre head and I've given myself a centimetre of leeway. Then you need to make the top. And there are probably really clever mathematical ways that you guys can come up with to figure out how big the top of this hat is supposed to be. What I did was I put the hat down on the fabric and drew around the wall so that I knew it would be big enough. But if you guys have a better way of constructing this this top piece, by all means go for it. One thing by now you'll have noticed is that my top piece doesn't have the decorative stitch going down the middle of it. That's because I think that will make me look even more of a penis than I already do, so I haven't added that yet. I probably will get around to it, but I just think that I don't like how it looks. So you've now got your top piece and your side piece. You've got all the pieces that you need. You should have an oval and you should have a long sort of straight square, straight rectangle piece. Straight square? Then you just need to sew them together. And the original is sewn pretty simply just with a running stitch. So that's all I've used on mine. Nice and tight running stitch though, not one of these ones where it's only 3 stitches per inch. Then you've basically made a pillbox cap, and you can leave the hat like that if you want. The one we have is highly decorated. If you want to just make a plain pillbox cap, there's nothing to say you can't. The Dutch ones that we have are decorated, so I've gone for decoration. So we're going to talk about that. So the decoration that you're going to be doing is actually quite labour intensive. So if we focus, and there we go. So what you're going to be doing is a herringbone stitch, but it's a specific sort of herringbone. And it's a type that we find on several other hats from the Netherlands. We also find it on, I believe, a 10th century woolen tunic sleeve or possible trouser or hose cuff from York in England. So there's a theory that this decorative stitch is potentially a piece of Anglo-Saxon decorative stitching. They are known for their embroidery slightly later, in the 11th, 12th, 13th centuries. It's called Opus Anglicanum, or English work. So it's possible that this is Anglo-Saxon work that's being exported, or it's just being done locally and it happens to be exactly the same stitch as we're seeing in England during the same period. And on the lens cap, the stitch goes up the seam that you have just made on the cylinder, the wall, and then it goes around the top. And you also have one that goes from the seam right across the middle of the top of the hat. That's the one I haven't done just yet, but you can see it on this reconstruction of the original. And this is how you do that stitch. Now, if this looks a little bit freaky and a little bit then don't worry, I felt exactly the same, but I am a spoon-handed moron and I can make a nice looking stitch like this. So it's relatively simple. All you need to do, you make an anchoring stitch. So you just bring the thread through the right side of the fabric, put it back through. Then what you do is you go down and to one side. I always go to the right, bring the thread out, loop it around the anchoring stitch, and go to the other side. So I go right, round the loop, into the left. Then you go down, and I go to the right, bring the thread through, loop it around the anchoring stitch, down and to the left. Do that a third time, down and to the left. Then this time, the third time, after the third time, so the fourth time, God, I'm not doing a good job of not confusing you, I'm sorry. You bring the thread out, the working thread comes out, and then I count 1, 2, 3 stitches back, and I just do a loop underneath those. I just go up 3 stitches, do a loop under that, bring it round to the left, and then continue like that. 1, 2, 3 stitches, do a loop, and bring it down. And that will build up and build up and build up. Do some experiments, do some trial pieces. I have a few trial runs of this that go from absolutely shocking to pretty good to really quite attractive. And eventually you get this stitch that effectively simulates the look of a plait or a braid. So keep on trying, keep on practicing, and eventually, hopefully, you'll get a nice row of tight, fairly even stitches that look quite decorative. The final process here, and the decoration, he said, attempting to focus on himself, the final process here in the decoration is a very short, quite tight running stitch or stem stitch along the side of this. And what that does is, rather than this just being a nice decorative element, that really gives it some rigidity. So this actually becomes a little bit structural. So it actually strengthens each of these seams. And that's led some people to interpret this not just as a decorative stitch, but as a reinforcing stitch, especially on the cuff of a tunic. So it's there to stop you from rubbing the seam and the stitching on the seam away, or from tearing the cloth or making holes in the cloth. So this is going to be nice and tough, nice and firm, and it looks good as well. So it strengthens the hat and it looks good. Once you've done that, you are done. I will say that this decorative stitch takes quite a long time to do if you're new to it. I managed to do about an inch every 45 minutes, which is not very fast. But it looks good. It effectively fits just about, although I am wearing a ponytail today and that is affecting things. People tend to wear them in all sorts of different ways. I like to wear mine a little bit higher on my head. It's slightly tight, but it's fine. I've just got a bit of a bulge at the back from my ponytail. That was dumb. I like to wear mine sort of like a forage cap, almost. So it's kind of like a side cap, like a fancy 19th century smoking cap. I think it looks quite dashing, like that. How did they wear this originally? We have no idea. I mean, it can be a Phrygian cap. It can be just a standard pillbox. It can be a slightly taller pillbox. It can be a side cap. You can wear it to the back if you want. You can effectively wear this. It's just a little floppy cap. So nobody should be telling you that you're wearing this in the wrong way, because we don't know how people were wearing it. In terms of the dating, the Lens cap is dated 6th to 9th century. So that's the Lens cap, and it's super simple construction, and I've put it somewhere. Oh, here it is. So that's the Lens cap. It's a lovely hat. It's a lovely first hat project to make as well. And if you're looking for a first dip into some of the fun embroidery stitches that we've got from the period, this is a really good one to try and get down. It takes a couple of attempts, like I said, but it's a lovely, lovely one to use. Give it a go. I hope you find this useful. I hope that you make one of these. If you do make one of these and you feel happy with it, then feel free to tag me in your Instagram posts, or like put it on the Facebook page, or share it to the Discord if you're on the Patreon. So yeah, diolch yn fawr iawn, unwaith eto am ymuno. Thank you so much once again for joining, and yeah, tan tro nesa, hwyl am y tro. Bye for now. I'm going to put a hat, on my metal hat. Oh, shit. Sorry, Thor. That was cool. Bring me the biggest hat you have.